Your favorite TV shows: Succession,
Cooking up his sweaty spaghetti.
The Last of Us,
It smells like burnt shit.
Law and Order. Whatever TV shows are there, Olivia? What's you doing? Stranger Things,
I'll punch you so hard in your face that your teeth will fall back out.
Black Mirror,
Merry Christmas!
Grey's Anatomy,
Your heart's like in your vagina.
I said that.
White Lotus.
The cheeseburger was made by a blind nun in a basement.
You guys like TV. The writer's strike is happening and it's gonna fuck up your TV. Today we're gonna be talking about the writer's strike. Writers are fighting for their careers, for their futures, of how they're gonna be able to still write and make a living from writing and not be taken over by AI.
One of the first streaming original shows was House of Cards. It was fast-paced and it looked beautiful and it had huge stars.
It's opened up the world. Maybe there used to be 80 shows in a year, now you're up to 500. And for writers, it was good because it gave people entry.
And you have a seat at the table that for years created careers for people. It doesn't exist like that anymore.
I remember House of Cards. I think that's the first time binging became a thing. If you create a season that's 12 episodes done all at one time, then it's done. And if you're binging and you can watch it any time, then I guess content isn't necessarily serialized. And so how do you pay residuals to the writers who write the shows? And I guess they made more TV shows. So now I'm more curious on how the payment structure is than anything else, because that's really what dictates how to sustain an industry.
What's the difference between a network show and a streaming show? Network is the TV we all grew up with, ABC, NBC, CBS. And it's the season that begins in September and runs 22 episodes and ends in May. And that had something to do with auto sales, by the way. The new car seasons came out and they were gonna advertise heavily, so you wanted new TV.
I did not know that. You know how they say like the internet is based off of advertising, because most platforms are free and then there's some form of advertising to pay for it, us being the product. TV was essentially the same way. The seasons are mapped out to when the companies could sell you some shit. Things have changed, but they really haven't changed. Entertainment's always been based around you being the consumer of or the product.
The network model worked for a very long time and gave people a stable career.
I broke in on Law and Order Criminal Intent. I was on staff there 4 years, became showrunner there. So you get paid by the episode or by the week. They said you'll make $15,000, and I thought that was it. I didn't know they meant for every episode. I didn't understand what I'd stumbled into. So I was able to make a living, start raising a family in New York. I think those doors have closed now. So the upside of streaming creatively was you didn't have to worry about commercial breaks. If I write an SVU, we have 5 commercial breaks in an hour of TV.
Yeah, 15 grand an episode is kind of interesting. And then if you're getting residuals off of those old episodes, oh, that's a good living. Holy cow. I used to always like make fun of my mom, like, yo, like all these Lifetime series, but these people are getting paid like doctors. And I guess that's kind of based off of the business model, because the ads are all set up, like he's saying, it's like 5 ads like per episode. The advertisers are paying for spots on these shows.
If you write for streaming, you don't have to worry about commercial breaks. You get to write a different structure. Maybe it's just an organic 3-act structure to an hour. Now you're down to 8 episode runs, 6 episode runs.
As the episode orders have shrunk, what used to be 40 weeks out of the year that you were working is now 20 weeks. So try having to go from finding 1 job a year to finding multiple jobs a year.
So when you're writing the last season or when you're wrapping up the project you're working on, you also have to be starting to interview for new, like interview and network and take energy from putting out the best creative project that you have in order to find the next job. Went from a fun creative endeavor to like, nah, like you out here slanging. It's an iteration of the gig economy.
Broadcast shows kind of used to be the entire TV space. Your show was being filmed, it was in production concurrently while you were in the writer's room.
Writers are going back and forth and really learning the ropes of what it is to produce a TV show. You know, and it might be in the moment when you're watching a scene and an actor might come up to you and say like, this line just isn't working for me. The job of the writer at that moment is to talk to the actor, figure out what isn't working, and write them a new line.
The writer is working with the actor at all times and should be there when that actor is giving life to those words.
It seems like their favorite place to cut the budget is with writers, robbing them of creativity.
Writers are now being separated from production, employed for fewer weeks.
Fewer weeks means less income.
You're actively employed. Like, you're not just hired as a mercenary. You iterate during the season, you're like on set, you're working with like the actors to make like a better product. You can kind of tweak things. But if you're only hired for 10 weeks and you're only paid for 10 weeks, you're not gonna do any extra work. You're not gonna show up to set to see everything being filmed, actually. They're trying to take the art of writing and just pretty much commercialize everything. So I kind of see where the writers are coming from as relates to this writer's strike. Nothing is really sustainable by itself anymore. It's all being commoditized for profit.
There was this staff writer who was on The Bear, which is a streaming show on Hulu, and he had a story about how after working in this room, even though it was this critically acclaimed show and they were winning an award, he went to the award show broke and had to rent a bow tie.
How do you have a hit show? Like, how are you #1 in your field? They're giving you an award and you're not getting monetary value. That sounds horrific. Like, I don't even think I would show up. I'd be like, nah, fix my salary. Like, I don't need a trophy. I need some racks. So they won a show and then he was still broke. If you're in the top 10 percentile and you're not making a living, then it's not even sustainable.
Residuals, which are how actors and writers tide themselves over during lean times, have basically been decimated.
Every single time it's used, you get a check.
The number of runs your show has, the size of the check decreases. The reason my network residual is so healthy is because that was negotiated a long time ago when that was the only other way an episode could be rewatched. Now streaming comes in and there's a terrible formula based on a percentage of the sale from the studio to the streamer.
You get one check no matter how many times it's watched.
If you write a show for Hulu, you get paid to write it, and you might see $400 for the next 3 years, as opposed to a network rerun, which might be, for an hour show, might be $24,000.
Jesus, $300 from $24,000? I guess it's just sitting on like Netflix. But then Netflix or the streaming platform isn't going to necessarily share like how many times are really streamed, because that means they got to pay out. And so they're like, oh, we can give you like a check for just having the show. If the show's watched like 5 times on a regular platform, then if you were getting paid $24,000 every rerun, then you're looking at $100,000. Damn, it's not even sustainable at all.
This strike seems to be catching fire because it mirrors the discontent a lot of workers feel about this yawning wage gap between the top and the bottom.
Secondarily, but correlated, is that it's about the art that we're making. And if we're not given the time and the resources that we need to make good television, you're not going to have the diversity of voices, the diversity of ideas.
I think that we want to make sure that art isn't coming from only voices who can afford to do this as a job.
All right, in summary, the more content we make, the more dystopian it gets. Just, anybody who's watching this channel at least knows what the hell is coming. It's like, hey, we're telling you, you got to find some shit that works somehow. Takeaways for this video. The old model of how writers created or helped to create series and episodes is no longer viable, and so there needs to be some new business model put into place, and I think that's what's being worked on currently. If you're a streaming service and you're not using advertising, that means you're relying on subscribers, and so the business model of how streaming companies are bringing in money also changes, so that would need to be flushed out from a business model perspective. I think a lot of streaming companies are losing money. How companies or streaming companies bring in money is going to change, and that's going to have to be diversified. Technology is changing careers and fields and how money's made and how people are able to sustain or actually make it in this economy. With the advent of AI, does AI write the scripts and writers just edit them? Does the next Succession or hit show you watch, was that made by AI? Are humans going to accept that? I don't know the answer to it, but I definitely have a better understanding of the writer strike and what they're fighting for. They're fighting for survival. I wish the writers the best, because people need their TV shows. If you like content like this, make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.